Morning, everybody. Yesterday was a really tough day, and it didn't end. The news was really bad last night, all around the country. Just seeing anger and frustration, and some so much of it absolutely deservedly so, and some of it just completely unacceptable. But it's up to the individual thoughts how you're going to deal with all of this. Expectation is very high that it's going to be really a bad day today again. Plus, the National Center for Disease Control is freaking out now because the close proximity of all the people that are out there gathering, and so many unprotected, especially, they're expecting to see a potentially catastrophic spike in this disease. But it's going to be what it's going to be. I've had people coming on telling me I'm a fool and it's all a hoax and this and that. I mean, it's up to you as an individual to do what you feel is right. And just err on the side of caution if you can, because it's not just you that's going to be affected if you're wrong. It's all the people around you if you are infected. Okay, I'm through talking about that. I purged as much as I could yesterday, and I want to move on with what I think is the reason I started this site. I do enough of my soapbox on Facebook. That's why I'm usually gone. But I'm not gonna finish up because there's a lot of country stuff as I started to dig into it. All the songs I did with Reba and with like Larry London playing drums and these great musicians in Nashville. The records I did with Clint Black. I loved working with Clint and did videos with him and all kinds of stuff. But I'll tell you one anecdotal story that was great. I'm not going to say who the artist is because I don't want somebody may be hurt by this, even though it was a long, long time ago. But we were doing this album project, and generally on most of the projects, there's multiple writers that get their songs placed. That's a big deal to get a song placed in Nashville, especially with a major artist. It can be an absolute life changer, where you can go from living in your car to living in your Rolls, depending on how you treat those checks, I guess. I've never had any of those, so I'm not really sure what that feels like. I'm still a plumber at the end of the day. I'm a sideman, so I don't live in that world. But we were doing this album project, and there was a young writer in Nashville who got a song on the record, and he was so thrilled at the prospect of having a song. Well, this was early on. This is when like the Akai samplers came out. So this was back in the 80s. And one of my absolute favorite Nashville drummers who I got to do lots and lots of albums with is Eddie Bayers. And he got an Akai sampler. And on that sampler, he had a sample of a gunshot. So, it's always fun when you're doing country projects because it runs the gamut of just absolutely, humorous, whimsy, crazy, fun stuff to the most depressing and devastating turns of life. And one of the lyrics in this guy's song was something to the effect of, "The gun's on the table. I don't know if I can take it anymore." Well, we made two versions of the song before he got there to hear how his track turned out. The first one, we did the whole song exactly the way it's supposed to be, and it turned out great. On the second one, when he sang the line, "The gun's on the table, I don't know if I can take it anymore," there was a slight pause, and then Eddie hit the button, and it was just... The song continued on with no vocal for the rest of the song. Well, when the guy got there to hear how his song turned out, because he was so excited about this, we're all sitting there just quietly listening to playback, and it comes up, and that line comes up, and you hear this big gunshot, and then no vocal after this. And you could feel the wrenching intestines in this guy, because he was so thrilled to be having his song recorded, but this was not his intention. And he didn't know what to say. And we watched him just sitting there going through hell in his seat until we all finally just started laughing and just said, "Oh, no, that was an early take here." And then we played him, and then he was completely thrilled. But it was just a great moment. And every once in a while, you get those moments where you can play with somebody. I was doing a Debbie Boone record out here in Los Angeles. I did a number of records with Debbie, and she's a wonderful singer, just a great singer, and a great hang. And so we were in the studio for 2 days, and on the first day, the piano player on it was Larry Mahobarak. Now, Larry was one of the absolute staples of the LA TV movies. He's most gifted pianist. His son, Jamie Mahobarak's, carried on the legacy. He's also a major keyboard player in town. But Larry was just a remarkable guy. I mean, he's one of those guys you could set up some music paper and dip a toothbrush in ink and just spatter paint the thing, and he could play it. I mean, he's one of those guys. You know, like he was like what Tommy Tedesco was to guitar. You know, one of those guys that just, there was nothing beyond his scope. And so we did this thing, and the first song we did on the first day was, it was a contemporary Christian project, and a lot of that stuff is so deeply orchestrated musical. And I've never seen, I did a lot of projects with Larry, and he was really kind of having to work at this keyboard part. It was really hard. And it was, like Chopin on steroids. I mean, it was really amazing. But by the end of the day, I mean, he totally nailed it. He took time and sussed it all out and played it beautifully. But he couldn't make the next day. And I think John Hobbs, who's also a fabulous pianist. I mean, I love John dearly, but he's not the reader that Larry is. Few guys could read like him. Mike Lang could do it, and Lincoln Majorca, and there's a stable of Ralph Grierson of piano players in town that really, you throw anything in front of them, they can read it. But then there's the guys who are just doing the regular everyday dates, and this was a really a tough one. And when John arrived, we still had the charts on the music stands, and the producer on it said, "Oh, we almost finished this song yesterday, so we're just gonna grab it today, and then we'll move on to the next song." And John goes in the piano booth and sits down, and we see he made Edgar Winter look like James Brown. So much blood had drained from his face. He was as white as a ghost in there, staring at this chart. And we're sitting there, and the producer says, "Okay, let's get going here. We'll grab this one take, and then we're out of here." And the drummers goes, "Yeah, 1, 2," and we're dying, And finally, the producer hit the button. He said, "Oh no, we did get this one yesterday. We're fine. Forget it. We'll move on to the next tune," which was exactly what John was great at. And the look on his face was priceless, that he was not going to have to face this chart and deal with this. So every once in a while, you get in there, and and you can really tweak somebody's brain around a whole lot. And I always enjoyed, like all the jokes about country, like, what do you get when you play a country record backwards? Get your wife back, you get your car back, you get your dog back, all that kind of nonsense. But I loved working in Nashville. I loved the artists that I got to work with down there, the variety of artists, and so many of them, like the guitar players, like the Vinces and Steve Warner, and the Glenn Campbells and all. They could be first chair studio musicians. Their playing facility is so good, but the band of brothers that's down there. I mean, guys like Michael Rhodes is like one of my favorite bass players. Michael's a great bass player, and there's just each chair is so deep. And my oldest compatriot in the music business that I've been working with and known since around 1966 is Dan Dugmore. And Dan moved down there because Dan did all of James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt and did so many projects. He had a band with Waddy and Rick Marotta and Stanley Sheldon called Ronan. He moved down to Nashville and just, took him by storm with his playing. And he's had a great life in Nashville. And I'm really so proud of what he accomplished there. But I think, I'm going to keep this variety going. So, over the next few days, I'm going to try to get back in. I've got some more Jackson Browne, and I'm going to jump back into some Toto and some James Taylor. There's an inner album song of Phil's that I want to do, but it's going to be hard to do it because I overdubbed a couple of basses on it. So I'll show the different bass parts that I did and then play along with it. But it'll be more of an explanatory performance than a complete musical performance. But one of the things I found interesting in Nashville was they kind of went through a period where, so many of and this really kind of came down to female artists. I mean, there was an element of male artists who were subjected to this, but female artists really suffered at the hands of when the labels really wanted babes, really beautiful women to be their artists. And that became kind of a criteria for a lot of these executives. If a woman was overweight, they might, I'm not sure about her, even though she had a great voice and was writing great songs, or for whatever reason. And then that the advent of that brought in the Shania Twains and Faith Hill and these artists that could have also been models. Now, that's not to deny their talent, because they were really talented artists. It's just, it was kind of like when MTV took over, and all of a sudden the companies were looking at you as a visual entity and not as a musical entity. That became the primary focus, in the same way that they would really nitpick about the budget, but they had no problem, the budget for recording, but had really not many issues with the budget for making videos. So there was this kind of a quantum flip that happened, and it kind of settled a bit, and it became more of kind of everybody can still make it in. It's not to say that you can't make it in it, but there were people in positions of power that were really making that their primary consideration, was taking a look at the person. How are they going to look on video and things like that? But one of those artists that I got to work with who had all of that going for her was and is Faith Hill. I mean, she's a beautiful woman, but she's a really great singer. And she when she did her album that had the song Cry on it, I forget the name of the album, if it was Cry or if there was another name. I think they cut the whole album down in Nashville except for the single Cry. And we did that in LA. And I can't remember, I've been trying to look up credits on it. And, and when you're looking at credits on some of these sites like Discog and All Music, it lists everybody on the record without designating tracks sometimes. So the only person that I know for sure that played on this track with me is Vinnie Colaiuta, played drums. And Vinnie's one of my all-time favorite musical experiences. Hold on one sec, I'm going to get this. There we are, still back at the top. Vinnie is such a great adventure as a musician, because he can run the gamut from the absolute simplest parts, which he does so beautifully, to parts that you feel like somebody just took a chainsaw and ran it through your head. He's an absolutely remarkable drummer, and you say his name anywhere in the world, you drop that name. Everybody was talking about when I listed my country things, and they go, "Oh, you're going to need a lot of those little vacuums, the little robo vacuums to pick up all those names that you drop." We used to joke on the road every time somebody would start dropping some names, we would drop car keys. It's like me ringing the bell when James's stories would get too long, when James Taylor's stories would get too long. That was my signal. We do that out to each other on the road when everybody starts talking and names start flying and everybody starts throwing their keys down. I felt really, halfway through that list, I really started to feel guilty, going, what am I? I'm doing exactly what I throw keys down for. So it was pretty silly. But Vinnie, you go anywhere on this planet, and if you're talking to a drummer and you say Vinnie Colaiuta, they go, oh, Vinnie. He's like Sherry. You just say Vinnie. You don't even have to say his last name. Just say Vinnie, and it's good. So Vinnie and I got to work on this track, and we did this track in Los Angeles. But it's really a beautifully constructed track, and Faith just sings her butt off on this one. And so, rather than me playing along with it, I just want to play the track in how sweet it turned out. So this is Faith Hill and Cry.
Just one tear rolling down your cheek. Maybe I could cope, maybe I'd get some sleep if I had just one moment at your expense. Maybe all my misery would be well spent. Stop
I love power ballads. I always loved playing on power ballads, be it in rock idiom or like country. It's cool to have a power ballad in three. You don't hear them that often, and just having that waltz feel for it. I guess that's why on things like Dancing with the Stars, they would use a song like this for the waltz, for the Viennese waltz, even though it makes me crazy every time I hear, samba. They're dancing the samba, but they're playing, some, song that has nothing to do with it whatsoever. But that's a whole other discussion. But it's really interesting, like the different things that the country field has gone through. I think possibly Michael Thompson may have played the guitar on this. I know that I saw Faith on it was probably the Tonight Show, and Michael was playing with her live on the show. But Michael's one of the unbelievable guitar players. There's just this amazing handful of guitar players in LA, and Michael's really one of the cream of the crop. So he may be on this, I'm really not sure. But whoever it was played their ass off. It's really good. So that was Faith Hill, and they just, I just love the crafting, because you can go back into the era of like the Patsy Clines and so many of the early country singers, and there's this evolution that took place through so many of like the Alison Krauses and the Patty Lovelaces and Reba. Really, when I started with Reba, she was very, very pure in her country, and then really started easing more into adding some pop sensibilities to it. And then it really swung deeply into pop music, like I said on the other video, but sometimes they're doing pop songs and then they add a violin or a fiddle to it, and suddenly it's on country radio. So that was it for today, though. But I'm still thinking about the Akai sampler and the look on that guy's face when that gunshot went off, and he wondered what the hell happened to my song. But they're doing it, so what can I say? So, well, look, you take good care. Be safe. There's so many things going on right now that are so detrimental to everybody's health and well-being, that just be alert, be smart. I really feel, I just pray that there isn't a giant spike now in this disease, because the healthcare workers are so stretched to the limit already. But seeing all these people shoulder to shoulder running in and out of stores and no masks or anything on them or any protection. So future is really iffy. I always pray that I'm erring on the side of caution, but also just hoping against hope that the things I'm fearing don't come true. There's nothing I'd like better than for everybody to come through this okay, and for this things in this country to improve, and these endemic problems that we've had for millennia in this country get resolved, and make this a better place for all of us in it. And the world's going through this. There's problems everywhere in the world. And like I said, our time here is short. It's a brief existence. And let's try to make something positive of it, and not just be in constant strife and turmoil. So, oops, I think my soapbox just broke, so I'm going to climb down now. And my friend still thinks he still thinks he's in, a Clint Eastwood movie or something. I don't know what's going on back there, but I've got to change his diaper now. So we'll see. You take good care. I will see you tomorrow. And again, thank you all for being here. Man, I'm having such a good time with you all. And you all, oh God, please, oh no. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.